All right, here's a disclaimer before I get started. I am well aware that Rothko is abstract expressionism and that early Detroit techno and what we call minimal techno nowadays are two completely different things. That being said, for the purposes of this video, I will use the word minimalism as a catch-all to describe things that seem simple but are deceptively complex. So let's begin with my own elitist hypocrisy. The term respect for the craft is something I use online quite a bit. Even earlier this year, I was called out for saying that the music of producer Grimes is hardly art. And yeah, I was being hyperbolic. I was being a bit of a prick, you know. That's what you do online, I guess. But no excuses. The truth of the matter, in my heart anyway, is that none of us are qualified to determine the boundaries of what is and isn't art. And when we do so, we're engaging in behavior that can be traced back to more than just cultural elitism. Indeed, it goes all the way back to eugenics. Yes, I'm talking about the Nazis on a techno music channel on YouTube. Bear with me and let's go deep into the heart of the matter as we have a chat about minimalism, Rothko, UR, and the connection that leads us to the very root of how we view art and music. All right, check out this painting. Chances are you're looking at it on a TV or a phone screen. It just seems like maroon and gray square blotches on a blue background. Indeed, that's what most people see in 2024 when they see a Rothko, because they haven't seen the work in person. When viewed hanging properly, this is 10 foot by 7. It's massive, and the particular secrets of how he would mix his texture and materials to get the desired consistency were closely guarded. The effect is akin to being right in front of a window that goes into a deep, alien atmosphere that creates a desire to kind of climb in there. And in some people, a deep desire to slash and destroy the thing. Indeed, the abstract expressionism would inspire a man to slash 5 of Rothko's most famous works in a Z pattern like he was fucking Zorro. Others have professed to feeling particularly nauseous after attending a Rothko exhibit. But what's all the fuss about? Isn't this just some weird formula that some guy found to make money off rich people who call it modern art? I mean, you could probably make something similar in Photoshop in about 10 minutes, right? But then again, this goes back to the particular medium, the desired effect, and why the artist had the desire to affect the viewer in such varied and powerful ways. Rothko was a Jew born in pre-revolution Russia who immigrated to the United States when he was a child and ended up working odd jobs throughout the 1920s in the garment center and as an accountant. By 1951, we see him arriving in his grand style with number 6. I realize I'm still talking about Rothko and we haven't talked about techno yet, so I'm getting there. So in 1989, in Detroit, Michigan, Mad Mike and Jeff Mills would found the underground resistance collective, UR for short. Early releases would be mostly produced by the two I just mentioned, but then Rob Hood would join them and later be crowned the king of minimalism. Early UR releases faced similar backlash from commercial critics and DJs, citing the fact that most of the early minimal records were just a kick drum, a hi-hat, and a mono-synth line with a bit of reverb. To me personally, a Rothko and a UR track can mean the same base-level experience. A window into a deep and murky world of texture and meaning that doesn't hold your hand and explain itself to you as if you were a child. These are men of vision, using very minimal elements to create something that becomes more than the sum of its parts. Cries of, "Oh, I could do that if I really wanted," can be heard about early minimal records just as they could about Rothko paintings from consumers and critics alike. But no one stopped to think, well, why didn't I do it? To get to the crux of the matter, it was the vision of the creator, is that both men are from disenfranchised communities and created very detailed windows into fantastic worlds. And they were both told by the establishment, hey, this isn't within the boundaries of what we consider art. And this is where we get to the Nazi shit. The Third Reich did not dispose of what it called degenerate art. Indeed, they did not even burn or destroy the art it considered offensive. It had entire exhibitions dedicated to the supposed deviant intellectualism, including works by the late great Pablo Picasso. Similarly, in 1989, the U.S. Congress agreed on an appropriations bill for the National Endowment for the Arts, which forbid any funding for quote-unquote obscene art. This was spurred by the infamous Piss Christ panic of the same year. The author of that incidentally, was a devout Catholic, who went on record stating he made the work to criticize the overt capitalization of sacred icons like the plastic crucifix sold on every corner where he lived and depicted in the work in question. Nobody gave a shit though. This Is Not Art was right up there with the satanic panic over Dungeons and Dragons in the 80s as a hotbed political issue. When the Robert Mapplethorpe exhibit was removed from a museum in Washington in '89, the museum was surprised to receive an angry letter from Congressman Jesse Helms himself from the far right, demanding its restoration at the exhibit, even though it was he himself who had spearheaded the obscene art crusade that started the whole shebang. The Nazis, the far-right evangelicals, they wanted these things shown, so that once again art could be neatly defined and put into a clear and segregated box, so the experience of strange new things would create ridicule and disgust. I'm sure you can see where I'm going with all of this. We all have our heads up our asses these days, myself included. Each day is a struggle to stop being so full of what I think I already know. When I was a young DJ in my 20s, I used to think in terms of commercial versus underground, cool versus corny. Then in my 30s, I was convinced I somehow could just innately tell what was good and what was bad. Now in my 40s, I'm so grateful for the eye-opening experiences that have led me to my heart being open to things I would have never experienced with those too cool for school kind of blinders on. Without dismantling the supremacist hierarchy that subconsciously provokes those knee-jerk reactions within ourselves, we will never truly be free to embrace and experience the world around us. If Rothko hadn't found his famous pockets of silence, we would have never known his name. I'm Gunjack, and if you made it this far in the video, I want to tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you for listening to me rant and the contents of my heart on the subject of art and music today. If you'd like more information, there's a lot more in the description of today's video, and I'll leave you with the voice of Rothko himself in his infinite wisdom with some words that are frankly keeping me going today. See you next time.
When I was a younger man, art was a lonely thing. No galleries, no collectors, no critics, no money. Yet it was a golden age, where we all had nothing to lose and a vision to gain. Today, it is not quite the same. It is a time of tons of verbiage, activity, consumption. Which condition is better for the world at large? I will not venture to discuss. But I do know that many of those who are driven to this life are desperately searching for those pockets of silence where we can root and grow. We must all hope we find them.